basic 5 parts of a business, okay? There's probably 100 that people could put in order, but my experience shows me that these basically are the ones we're talking about. The first one is your self-analysis. I did this on Monday. What is self-analysis? Self-analysis, it's a form I have. Oh, by the way, all of my material has been copyrighted and registered. So if I send you a couple of questions, they're my own material. They didn't come from someone else. They didn't come out of a book. They came from me and experience. And that brings up my 2 favorite words, which I talk about all the time. Outside of support and implementation, my other 2 favorite words is theory and substance. And you're going to hear a lot of that if you listen to the show, because theory is something that somebody thinks they can do, and substance is something that was actually done with experience. So we only talk substance here, we don't talk theory. I've been to too many seminars that talk about theory and this and that, and it's never really explained in detail. So when I said to you earlier, this is a different program, our videos will be in detail, our webinars will be in detail, and our seminars are the best in the country because they work and they do give you a guaranteed success. So, as I said, you can find that somewhere else, so let me know. So, 5 basic principles of business. They can be in any order, but I just put them in my own order, which I feel is important. The self-evaluation is really the first one that you want to look into. And what that does, it lets you know whether you're qualified to go into business. I'm not talking about physical qualifications, I'm talking about mental qualifications, financial qualifications, and then family support. Those are very important for you as an owner to realize that you're going to have a lot of time spent out of the house. Your wife now has a burden of the kids, driving back and forth, clean the house, go shopping, because the business is going to eat up your time and your dollars. So, self-evaluation is a form I have. If you're interested, I'll send you out. It's very long, so I'll send you out maybe 10 questions if you want. You can look it over and get back to me, see what you think, because it is in detail. When we do the seminars, we actually fill out the whole form, and then we do a one-on-one analysis, and the one-on-one is you and me, or my staff. And then we try to decipher what you put there and where you want to go with the questions and answers you just answered. Most people answer the questions and they're not always sure of what it means, or I don't know, I'm not sure. Well, you better be damn sure before you start investing $150,000 for an average business or a storefront. Storefront is brick and mortar, windows, doors, that's a storefront. And I'm talking about home-based business, which you can start that for $1,500. We're talking about retail. That excludes manufacturing and distribution, so those become another category. So these are the different programs that we offer through the seminar. So anyway, self-evaluation. If you want a form on that, I'll send you some short questions on it. Just give me a call here at 646-478-4796. This is the Business Talkback, and I'm your host, Tony Pezza. As I said, Chris Kennedy's on the keyboard, and Danny's over there doing websites, web pages. So self-evaluation is number 1 on the hit parade. Number 2 is funding. How are you going to fund this business? Where are you going to get the money from? What's the interest rate? What's the payment rate? What's the notes? This is the detailed, what I call the substance now. I've just given you 2 taglines or subject lines. Now we talk about substance. And I can talk about substance because I've been there, I've done it, I've funded thousands and thousands of businesses as a mortgage bank, so I know what I'm talking about. So we now separate the theory from substance. And this show is nothing but substance, and that's all I know. I don't talk theory because I don't want to talk theory, because I don't believe in it. So your self-evaluation is really your number 1 priority. Are you qualified to do it, and what your family thinks? Now on my questionnaire, it gets very detailed. It is personal, basically, how many hours you wanna put into it, what your wife think, what your family think, who's gonna take care of the kids. And why is it on there? It's on there because most people don't think about the other side of their family life. And so when failure occurs, most of the time you can trace it back to having no support from your household. So that's where the problem comes in, and I've always done the self-evaluation. As I said, I created it for myself 45 years ago, and it sustained 24,000 businesses without a problem. So does it work? Yes, it works, and it works excellently. So don't be afraid to give me a call on it. So your self-evaluation is really what you want to do once you break it down. So the other thing is funding and financing. Now, again, theory is that it's a word, it's a tagline, and the way we'll explain. So what we do is we explain to you in detail, part of another form we have. And it breaks down the funding, where you're getting the funding from, what's the acceptable interest rate, how you're gonna pay it back. And that becomes part of the business plan, but I don't wanna get ahead of myself. So the funding is basically start your business, where you're gonna get the money from, and how you're gonna get there. So, so there's only a few ways to fund a business, as I say all the time in my seminars, is that cash is always the best, you have no notes. Number two, you can use your credit cards and pay it at interest rate, if it's a short term, as long as you're gonna pay it back. The other one is, if you have life insurance that you can trade in, you can take an equity on your house, or you can bring a partner in. So there's only 4 or 5 ways you can do it, for the startup, for the funding of a business. I'm going to do a seminar on how to buy a business with no money down, but that's not for today's program, and we'll talk about that another time. So the funding and the financing is really number two after you know yourself as a person. Because once you know yourself as a person, you can say, well, maybe I can pay it back or I can't. See, I read on Monday from my manual is that if the program doesn't fit, then don't buy it. So if you're into a program that you want to go into business, if all of what you do fits, then you're okay. If it doesn't fit, don't buy it, please, because the thing is that, a round peg and square hole doesn't really work. Unless you want to start, get some tools and make it round and make it square that fits. But if you're going into business money-wise, you don't want to be doing that. So the basic is your self-evaluation and then funding and financing. Again, I'll go over detail one at a time, and in my forums and in my seminars, we actually break it down dollar, penny, day by day, month by month. And when I talk about the business plan, I'm talking about your actual startup with the funding. So that would be number two. And the other one is, which I always find when I do the appraisals or analysis, is the individual's experience in business. What's his experience? I tell the story all the time about how many chefs want to be business owners. Bad move, very bad move. I've counseled hundreds of those people over the years, maybe more, that are in a business in one capacity, but not in a business in another capacity. So if you're the chef, that doesn't make you a business owner, because you don't know anything else about it. You don't know the legal end of it, you don't know the insurance end of it, you don't know the lease end of it, what's right, what's wrong, how much you should pay, sales per square foot, profit and loss. So all of this comes with the experience in business. So at my seminar, our 4-day seminar that we have, all this is explained to you in detail. Everything's explained to you in detail. That's why it's 4 days. It's a workshop. When you leave there, you'll be very smart, and you say, wait, I don't want to go into business, or I want to go into business. And if you're existing, you're going to find out all the things you're doing wrong to make you a better owner. So your experience in the business is really very important. If you're a shoemaker, and my father was a shoemaker, he worked very hard at there. But going back then, he had no knowledge of cost. I'm going back when I was a kid, so we're going back a long time. He went to work, he fixed the shoes, he put the heels on and the soles. I used to work there on the weekends, on Saturday, closed on Sunday, obviously. And I used to help my father out all the time. So I was shining shoes, and I was doing the taxing the soles, and then buffing them down and putting new laces on. But my father knew anything about business. He was there. He knew that, the weather cost him or whatever it was, and he put a sole and a heel on. He charged $1.75, and you were done. Okay, that's what's his business. No. In the meantime, now that I think back then, he probably could have had 10 shops, because right now there's no shoemakers around. He would have been number one in the country, basically, franchises, teaching, but that's a long time. I was a kid then, and as you get older, you learn all these things. I didn't know that stuff when I was a kid either, so. But, this is what business owners do, they don't know right from wrong, and so whether a business whether it's franchise concept, or whether it's just, we're not paying next month's bill, so. So experience in business to make you successful is the experience you know of the business you're going into. That's your experience. And number four, is general knowledge of business itself. What's the lease look like? Is the contract look like? What should my lease read? What should my contract read? What is the business I'm going into? How can I grow that business? So the knowledge of business in general, profit and loss, how to do a cost analysis, how to do a business plan. That's general knowledge of business. So those are important. And marketing is really on the parade also, but marketing should be, after you know your funding and financing, if you know whether you're qualified to do it or not, whether you have knowledge of the business and the experience of it, then you go to marketing, because once everything else is in place, now you know exactly where you want to go, what you want to do. Now you're marketing, and you do your business plan, and marketing now gives you a projection of how much money you need to pay your bills. Now, we do all this for you. We do the business plan for you. We do your we'll do your analysis, we'll do your appraisals, we'll do an on-site inspection. So I just walk you through a 5-step program that will get you in the right direction. So as I said, we do all this for you. We're doing it for a long time, and we're very successful at it. So why would you not want to give us a call and say, hey, here's what I got, what can you do for me? So, and believe me folks, the phone call is free, there's no obligation, you talk to me, you don't have to send me a check for the conversation. I think that's where a lot of people are very fearful and say, oh, it's gonna cost me money. Well, it's not gonna cost you anything but a phone call. And particularly if you want a newsletter, there's no charge for that. Or if you want the free business analysis, we'll do that for you also. So, we do have many offers that we are offering. We use offer twice in a row, but because I don't know how else to explain or express that this is a freebie for you. And I don't know why the business owner is hesitant. So I just gave you some ammunition here that will help you in your business. As I said, the basics of it, the self-analysis. Give me a call, I'll send you a short form on that, get you started. Your funding startup, if you want to sit and talk to me, I'll walk you through that. The experience you have in business, if you have no experience, stay out of there unless you want to hire somebody that to run your business, what you do. I don't suggest that, but people do many things in a different way. So if you know somebody that you can trust, that's okay. But in the meantime, you better know the basics of the business. And again, the knowledge of business terms in general. I talk about this all the time at the seminars. You have to know what a contract and a lease means, even though you talk to the attorney, which you should have all the time. I don't teach law, I don't teach accounting, I don't teach insurance. So I know what the terms are, I know what they mean, I know how to get there. But you should really understand it, because if you're talking to a bank about a loan, you want to understand the financing. What does it mean? What are you getting into? What is my balloon payment? What is my interest rate? Is it working off a float? Is it working off prime over? So there's different terms you really should know. So what we're going to do is go over these. We did this already, but we will probably continue this as we go. Not today. I don't like to go back over the same thing twice. I don't have to. But the 5 basic steps to a sound business: self-evaluation, funding, experience, knowledge, and marketing. So I did go over some of the basics for a startup business, but more importantly, I think, because the startup business is that you can back out anytime you want before you start, obviously, not when you're into it, but even then you can, but it's not advisable. But if you're a ongoing business now, unless you want to close your door and walk away and pay a big big debt to the landlord if your lease is on hold or the lease is still running. I don't suggest that. What I do suggest is that, as a business owner, you really should do a little more homework on your own business. As I said many times over, and not the first time I said it, I didn't create it today, it's been there for a long time, is that business owners really work in the business, not at the business. I think I told a story one time, I did a seminar for a chamber, this is many years ago, and there's probably 45 to 55 people in the audience, and I get introduced, and told them basically my background without bragging, but you gotta tell them what you do, otherwise they say, who the hell are you, you know, so they think you may just came off the street or you're trying to sell something, so we don't do that. So you have to really get into some of what you do in terms of, you know, here I am and maybe I can help you. So, so you basically go into, you know, talk about what you're doing, and you do offer appraisals, analysis of the business, buy, sell, if you want to buy, you want to sell. We'll do an evaluation of the business before you sell it, and we'll evaluate the business you want to buy. And we'll give you our professional opinion, that's what we do. As I said before, earlier, is that after 24,000 businesses, I think we know what we're talking about, so. So one of the, I'm sorry, the seminar I was at, or the presentation I was at, is one of the chambers years ago. And I went on for a few minutes, and, you know, people asked me a question, you know, where do you work out of, or you have an office, where you located at, so at the time I was in Point Pleasant like I am now. So, for anyone that's just tuning in, we are broadcasting out of Point Pleasant, New Jersey. We're Internet Radio. Studio is here. We work out of our office. We have our microphones and our mixers, and we have Chris on there doing the engineering. So we do work side by side in the office, and we get it done. So, this chamber seminar I was at, after I went out for a few minutes, got a couple of questions, and then we're talking about the growth of a business, people that haven't checked their price structure in a while. So we try to get them to make them aware of what they're doing wrong, if we can do that, because a lot of times we have a hard time trying to get people interested. And I don't know why. I would think that if someone came to me and was doing a presentation, I'd be asking a lot of questions. When I go to seminars and someone's speaking, or, you know, as they're going, I always carry a pen and pencil, and I make questions. So if they go over a subject and I want to know more detail, I would raise my hand and say, you know, I always give you a name. My name is Tony, and I'm from whatever you want to be from, if you want to do that. And then I would say, you just mentioned this, can you explain that in further detail? And then I got more questions. So sometimes they don't like to see me, and I'm not trying to pick on them, I'm just trying to get answers. So the question I asked them after I got rolling for a short time, I went over, you know, again, I talk about leasing contracts a lot, because the lifeblood of your business is buying it. What is your lease? The contract you bought it for. What's the terms of the contract? What are you going to sell for? Very simple. So, in fact, talking about that, I'm going to try to put together a seminar for a group I was with for 8 years, and try to offer a seminar for their business owners, and the subject will be buy, grow, and sell your business for a profit. So we're going to be contacting the people we have to contact. Hopefully they'll agree with the concept and maybe promote it through their group, and then we'll do a seminar locally and see what happens with that. So I'll get back to my Chamber of Commerce. After questions were answered, I says, how many people here own their own business? Because a lot of times members go to chambers and they're not the owner. They usually fill in for them if it's a bad night or they're working or something. So, and most of the people there were owners. They raised their hand and said, thank you very much. And then the next question I asked was, how many people rent? And hands went up on the rental. So I said, well, this question is really for the owners that are renting. And I said to them, I says, when's the last time you checked your lease to find out when it expires? when it's renewable and what's your increase in percentage of the rent, or is there any add-ons for the can? That means common area. So what happened was that hands went up for rentals. When I asked the question, hands went down. And I said, why'd you drop your hand? Because I want to ask you a question. And so I did ask one of the ladies that were there, who rents, who's been there, I don't know, for a number of years, let's say 5 years, and I don't know the exact time. And I says, when was the last time you checked your lease for renewal? She says, it's funny you mentioned that. I just got a notice from my landlord that my lease has expired and he's not gonna renew it because I didn't sign within 60 days or 90 days. And she said, now I have to look for another location because he already rented it out to a similar type business, and this happens all the time. So not only you lost your lease, now you gotta relocate, move, get another lease, set up a new store, then worry about the competition that's coming into the same area you just left. And so this is what I'm talking about. So people that don't really follow their business right down to the letter, even though they're 5 years or 6 years, maybe the landlord doesn't want to rent to them for whatever reason. Maybe he was offered more money from someone else in the same business. Like for instance, another story. I got a lot of stories to tell over the years, and so they're interesting, but they're all real. Again, substance and theory. So there was a situation where I got called in to do an analysis for was a restaurant, and very profitable, and he probably could have been a little. Profitable, he probably could have a little more sales because he was working a high profit. So his traffic count was low, but he was profitable. I didn't like his profit structure. I would see more sales with the same profit, but that's another story. Anyway, so I got called in to do analysis on this. He was thinking about selling it. So I did the analysis, got paid, went through the process. My analysis, so you know why it takes time. My analysis run between 2 and 4 weeks to complete it. We do have the lease analyzed by an attorney, which hopefully we'll have on staff shortly. We check your accountant, we'll check the numbers, and my accountant do that for you. And then we come back with something that's real, and then I do my 100-point evaluation, which I'm going to get into that subject again. So I went to this restaurant, did the evaluation was good. So I said, what do you think you can sell it for? Because I was a mortgage banker and also a broker, business broker, real estate also, but I was a broker. So I went and I said, well, here's what we could probably sell it for. I said, but I need a copy of your lease, I want to see your lease contract, I want your suppliers, I want to see if we're up to date, I want to see if we have to make a contract with the suppliers, and see if we can get a different rate or a different discount or different terms for the new buyer. So usually when you sell a business, you have to go on COD immediately, or put up a cash deposit against your billing. So there's a lot of things you have to do, but they all take time and they all take a little more knowledge of the business in general, which is what we offer here. So I did all this here, it was all good. And then I got the lease, I read the lease, and my attorney looked at it, because at the time I had an in-staff or on-staff attorney, so this is how we did all the businesses. As I said, it's why all the transactions we did went smooth, because we controlled one end to the other. So I read all this here, I looked over and I said, something wrong somewhere. So I tried to look at it, and he says, well, here's the problem. I said, I see that. He said, well, there's not an option for renewal on this. I saw that too. So I called the owner back and I says, you got a good evaluation here. I said, but here's your problem. Will the landlord give you, a 5-year lease or 3-year lease with 2 3-year options? So you got 9 years. Well, within that number, whether it's 5 and 5, but you want to stay within that year for a new buyer anyway. And that's another subject I can go over with you as the show goes on. So went through the lease and I said, this is wrong. Drove over, talked to the guy, and he says, well, I don't know if the landlord's going to give me another lease. I said, why? You've been here for a number of years. He said, because he didn't want to renew the last one. I said, so what are we selling here? We can't get a lease. We don't have a business to sell. Well, he got very upset. He said, what do you mean it's a business? It's not a business. Remember I said before is that your lease and your selling price is your profit. There's no other way around it. That's your profit. your lease and your selling price is your profit. If you don't have either or, you don't have a business. Nobody might tell you any different. Don't let these people who write books on theory, and this is again, I'm giving you substance, folks, not theory. So, go back to the man, talked about it, he said, well, I'm going to get a lease on it. I said, well, then we got business selling. I said, you're very upset. He said, what do you mean I'm doing this? You gave me a valuation. That's fine. But, when we check the lease now, you don't have a business anymore. Let's go to the landlord. He said, well, he wouldn't renew it 6 months ago, because I'm on month to month. I said, well, when I asked you if you had a lease, you said yes. And I asked you if you could renew it, you said yes, and now you're telling me you can't. So, anyway, so I already got paid, but that's not the problem. I said, I wouldn't have took your money, but I did this work already. I wouldn't have done any work if you didn't tell me that you didn't have a lease. So we go to the landlord, and the landlord says, no, I'm not gonna do the lease because, and here's the kicker, folks, and this is the whole guts of the story, the whole crux of the story. He was bringing in his brother-in-law into the same restaurant that he wouldn't sign the lease for. Now, the equipment was not owned by, which I knew when I did the appraisal, was not owned by the owner because the landlord owned the equipment. It was a closed restaurant. The new guy came in, cleaned it up, revamped it at his own cost, but he was renting or leasing the equipment, including the kitchen equipment. So, this is what I'm talking about. You go into these businesses, you really got to know what you're doing. And so, when I go through these processes, and this is one of the stories, and there are many of them, but here's a good situation where the fellow just lost $250,000 or $300,000, something that wasn't sellable anymore. So he didn't tell me he didn't own the equipment. When I filled out the form, he said he owned it. He didn't tell me his lease was expired and he couldn't get it renewed. So I said to him, I wouldn't have did this for you. I said, they did the work. I can't give you your money back. He said, no, I don't want it back. He said, but I thought I can get the lease. Now, the point I'm trying to make, ladies and gentlemen, is that he lost $300,000 because he didn't get his lease. So, and now he's out of there, and going back a number of years, this could be 4 or 5 years ago. He then had to get out. This other guy's brother-in-law came in, or brother, into a going business, a going restaurant. They didn't miss a beat. They closed for one day, one lousy day for $300,000. The new owner came in, picked up right where he left it. It's the same menu, the same pricing, everything's the same. Closed for one day. Goes on a Monday, open on a Tuesday. So that's what I'm talking about, general knowledge of your business and your leases. So be very careful where you go with your dollars, where you go with your leases and contracts. I say it all the time, I don't teach law, I don't talk about law, but I don't teach it, I don't give recommendations, accounting or insurance. Anything else I can talk about. I can talk about the other things too, but I wouldn't recommend what you do. So we give you advice here, we give advice, and this is a disclaimer to everybody that's listening. We give advice based on our experience. We don't talk about legal matters. We can talk about a lease, what a lease should contain, but we're not going to talk about the legal portion of the lease. That's going to be a lawyer for that. But we will talk about the business, like I just said to you, about a lease, what it should run. So, when you buy a business, you should know what you're going to sell it for. You should have an idea what your profit's going to be. And of course, things change. Weather changes, streets change, demographic change, people change. I understand all that. But you should have a general idea. So like I said before, is that a business, your profit in any business is your lease, that is saleable part of your business, and the selling price is where you want to be at. Everything else in between doesn't matter. Because all you're going to do is make a good living, and that's where you're going to go. So when you sell it, that's when you get the chunk of money. So here's a good example of a guy who just lost $300,000. So, you want to lose $300,000, Chris?
No way, absolutely not.
On a
No
business because of the lease? I don't think so.
Definitely not. That's not cool.
But ladies and gentlemen, and business owners, and those that want to be, these are real stories. Substance, and more substance. That's all you're going to get here, son.
Yes.
Anyway, so what we're going to do, we did go over some of the topics we have. Of course, we have 150 of them. We're not going to cover it here. Probably won't cover forever, because they keep getting upgraded, and the topics are 150 subjects. topics, but the underlining classes for those subjects total more than 450 pages, so, I mean, more than 50 subjects. Speaking of pages, I just completed 4 manuals, manual 1, 2, 3, and 4, for the seminars, because they're working manuals. Don't ask me to send them to you because they're work manuals, you won't understand them. And why wouldn't you understand them? Because they're actually workshop manuals. They're not something you're gonna read. You can read it, but you're gonna have a lot of questions. That's why we do the seminars, because we explain in detail exactly what every line means, what every subject means, and how you get there, so. That's what we work on substance. So I did go over my 5 basic step approach to the businesses, and the knowledge and experience, and the other couple of them, but they're all 5 in total. Of course, you can put them any order you want, but I like that order because I like to start with the individual, whether he's qualified, and the funding, and then move on from there, because if you don't have the self-esteem or the funding, you're not going to topic 3, 4, and 5, you're not gonna make it, so. Now, at our seminars, we do have speakers, we have professional speakers in terms of legal, accounting, marketing, insurance. We break it all down, it's a 4-day class, and it's done with all the bells and whistles. And it is the #1 seminar in the country because we give you ongoing support, implementation, and guarantee. Isn't that a nice word? Guaranteed to succeed, wow. I wish I had that in some other businesses I had, but unfortunately, it doesn't work. And we can offer the guarantee because we know that we are #1 in what we do, so.